Hey, good afternoon, Bryce. Thanks so much for joining this week's episode of the podcast. Glad to have you on. If you don't mind, just start out with introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, what you're doing, something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Peter. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Bryce Perham. I'm a recent graduate of college, about a year and a half out of college. I live in the Nashville, Tennessee area, and I graduated with a degree in finance, but I'm actually working in the tech industry now. I'm doing cloud computing and custom application for a tech consulting company, learning a lot throughout that, and also just learning a lot about how life is after college and the importance of balancing like work and community and how to get involved and have purpose and all those things. It's a lot once you graduate college, but
Yes.
I've had a great time learning it.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And that's one of the cool things about this episode and this podcast is getting people on the podcast. I mentioned it in one of the first episodes Life Shift put out, but getting people who are at the same point in life or just a few steps ahead. So this episode is primarily targeted to maybe people who are finishing up college, they're an upperclassman, maybe they're just out of college as well, and they're going through some of the similar things we're going to talk about. One of the first things I want to start out talking about is life after college. I know some things that have been like different than I expected. What were some expectations you had about life after college, and how did reality compare right away?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'm gonna have a different case than some people because I got married after college. But like, if we
Okay.
factor out the marriage part, like college or life after college, my expectation was, oh, it's gonna be just like college, but instead of going to classes, I'm gonna go to work for 40 hours a week, and then I'm still gonna be like playing intramural basketball, or I'm gonna be seeing all these people, right? And so like that was my expectation. I was like, oh yeah, it'll be just like that. And then reality hits, and I come home from my 8 hour work shift and I sit there and I watch Netflix. Or like there's just nothing to do, especially if you like move to a new town or you're somewhere where you're not close to a lot of people you know. That was the reality of it, and it was the polar opposite of my expectation.
Okay. What were like some of the biggest challenges you faced? I know you brought up your marriage. Not that that was a challenge, but that was a different factor than some other people have. What were some challenges you faced right away in the first few months of graduating? I know for me personally, it was stuff I had never had to do before, like lease agreements, vehicle stuff, registrations. Go ahead.
Yeah, you just don't understand. Like in college, there's so much more to do. I mean, registering your vehicle in a new state can be super annoying, having to deal with the DMV. That's just one tiny thing. And then you're like, oh yeah, my I have to pay rent, but oh yeah, I have to factor in my water and electricity bill because that's not actually in the rent price. And then another thing is like food. At college, most people have a meal plan and you just go and get it. But now you got to plan out all you're going to have for the week, and you're going to go to the grocery store maybe once or twice a week to plan that all out. And so that's a big challenge. But like those are, I would say those are little challenges. Big challenges for me was I moved to a new city, I didn't know anyone, and I was having a hard time finding a job, and I was having a hard time like with finances because you're right out of college, you've just paid off your bills, and now
Right.
you've got rent coming up every month, you've got electric bill coming up every month. I have a wife that I need to help and provide for, and I can't find a job to help me. I probably had over 100 applications. So those are some big challenges, I would say.
How did you manage the shift from a structured academic environment like university or college to a more self-directed professional life?
That's a good question. I almost find that my life during the day is more structured now than it was in college. In
Yes.
college, right, you go to class, but your professor says, "Hey, this paper is due in 2 weeks. As long as I do it before the due date and turn it in, I'm good, right?" But usually you go to work and your boss says, "Hey, this is due by the end of the day." So that's what you do all day long. And you can't like you can't be like, "Oh, I feel like I'm gonna go play some golf right now at 10 o'clock and then come back and work on it." So the structure, it was just really weird mindset to have, to be like, okay, this is 8 hours of structured time or however long you work, if you work more than that. And then here's my free time, where college was almost the exact opposite. We did a lot of stuff during the day, and then late at night we were out and grinding to get a paper done or to do
Right.
some research. So I found that that was a lot different for me, and it was really hard to like find those activities that were fun to do outside of work.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I kind of see like a little bit of a path that you're on and some similarities. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. When it comes to your work responsibilities, you were talking about different projects or what have you. How do you balance those work responsibilities with your personal life and hobbies? Does your job specifically, when it comes to you, does that end as soon as the day's over and you can focus on your hobbies or your wife? Or does that kind of mingle into outside of the office?
Yeah, so this is more specific to me. So I work, and this might be more specific to people who are salaried employees. When you're salaried, you're kind of expected to get it done when it's due, right? Because I don't
Right.
clock my hours every week. However, I'm very fortunate to be in an industry that's flexible. Obviously, there's weeks where the deadline is due and you have to do a lot of stuff, but the tech industry is very flexible. It's almost slightly more like academia, like where
Mm.
you get this done by the due date and you're good. Whether you're work coding at midnight or whether you're in the office doing it, as long as it's in. So that's one thing that I am very blessed to be in and very fortunate for. But another way that I find balance is actually by scheduling my extracurricular, you want to say, or my hobbies outside of work.
Hmm.
That really helps me balance because when you have a deadline to go do something else, that makes me put my work away or makes me get my work done. So then I can go and do what I
Right.
want to do.
Okay. I like that. And we're going to get into that too. Uh, you're talking about was it in the tech industry? You said more computer
Yes.
based.
Uh-huh.
What steps did you take, especially since you were a finance degree? I know it was kind of unique for my degree as well. What steps did you take your first job after college?
Okay, so I've worked another job before this one, and I've done it the hard way and I've done it the easy way. So the hard way is I'm gonna get a job myself by just applying on LinkedIn or Indeed or wherever, and that's how I got my first job. But it took about 100 applications, and that's not an exaggeration. I actually probably 3 months did 100 applications and probably only had 10 interviews, and then I finally got a job. So, I mean, you're going from 100, 10% of those I got to get an interview, and 10% of those interview, only one of them I was able to land a job. Or I had two offers, but so
So
half of
1%
that.
basically.
Yeah, so it's crazy. So I did it the hard way, and for this job, and then for the first job, for the job I'm in now, I had a connection, let me do an internship, which then led to an offer from the company. So if I guess my advice here is learn from my mistake. It's so much easier to do it through a connection. Find someone in the industry that you want to be in, connect with them, and ask if there's any opportunities at their company or if they know of anyone else that has opportunities. Because people are just so much more willing to hire through someone inside than an outside application.
I couldn't agree more with you. In fact, one of the guests we had on recently, he said that exact same thing. People are going to buy from it, whether it's sales, whether it's tech, whether it's law, corporately, people are going to trust someone they already know, even if you blow it out of the water with your interview. I mean, most people listening into this, you've seen that in your own personal life. And that leads right into what I was going to say next. How important was networking in your job search and career development? You kind of just talked about it. I guess since you kind of just answered that, here's a follow-up. What advice would you give to recent graduates or people who are still in college about setting and achieving their career goals right after college? What would be the
Yeah.
first steps?
Okay, that's a tough question because it's different. Some people are extroverted and it's very easy to make connections that will lead to networking, and some people are very introverted and it's awkward to like go introduce yourself to someone and shake their hand. So obviously, if you're an extroverted person, my advice is just to lean into it. Maybe set a goal for yourself to meet one new person every month in your industry that you want to get into, whether that's like through a LinkedIn follow up or through someone that your mom knows, your dad knows, or something like that. Those ones usually work better
Right.
than just straight up through LinkedIn. If you're an introvert, I mean, I guess the advice is the same. You gotta push yourself out there. I was able to get the job I'm in now through someone that my parents knew, and then I got to talk to them, and then they sent me. So you just have so many people. Your network is so crazy that you don't
Right.
even know how many people that your mom knows, or your dad knows, or your friend knows. You just have to ask, and then they have to ask, and it just works that way.
Right. Looking forward now, so now you've kind of transitioned to this job. Can you share with us maybe some short-term or some long-term career aspirations you personally have?
Yeah, so short term, I would just want to see a project through. So my company might, like they designed the Disney Magic wristbands at Disney too, and they coded all that stuff and did the product design. And so that was maybe, I don't know how long it was, a year project. They vary from 6 months to 3 years. I want to stick a project through, see how it happens from completion to ending, and just like really absorb as much as I can to understand like how different projects in the tech world will work. That would be my
Okay.
short term goal. And then you
Okay.
set a long term one as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
A long term goal for me, that's hard to say. I was talking to a mentor one time, and they said for some people it's really hard to plan more than 2 to 3 years out, or pretty much for anyone, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, in 3 years you could be married, you could have a kid, or you could be living somewhere totally different, and or something
Right.
tragic could happen, right? But long term, I would like to continue down this tech path and kind of learn, maybe lean into software as a service, being able to create
Okay.
some cool products that way.
Okay. Super cool. I know you mentioned right at the start when we were talking about life after college, you mentioned, you just paid off college or whatever, and there's a lot of expenses that come up. I know after I graduated university, just moving alone, you just don't think about all the moving fees, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to, I guess, financial management at your age and at your position, I know perspective's a big thing and experience. How do you approach managing your finances right after graduation? And what are some financial tips that have worked for you so far in budgeting?
Yeah. I mean, you said it right there, budgeting is the big deal. If you're not budgeting, you're probably not doing it right.
Right.
And so there's a lot of software out there that can help you with budgeting. I heard in the last podcast that Randy liked to do it with Excel, which is very good and actually like gets your eyes open to your
Yeah.
money more so. But if you don't want to put
Outdated,
that
he
much
said so.
time,
Yeah.
it's very time consuming. If you don't want to put that much time, there's an app I use. It's free for like the regular version. It's called Nerd Wallet, and you just link your cards
Okay.
to it, and it tracks all your purchases and it puts them into categories. And then if it doesn't know what one category it is, it'll ask you, and it gives you a breakdown of 50, 30, 20. So 50% of your money needs to go to your needs, 30% to your wants, 20% to your saving. Now, I don't necessarily completely subscribe to that method. I prefer to have like a 40% to my needs, and I would rather have like 20% to my wants and the extra like 40% to my saving. I'm trying to save more right now, but that's also just like my personal uh, budgeting. But if you stick to that, you're gonna be fine as long as you're saving money each month. That's my suggestion. That's what I tell everyone.
Okay, I like that Nerd Wallet. I need to check that out. I've heard of a couple similar apps, but and I like your take on that as well. I think, 50, 30, 20, that's good. But if you can switch with that. You can
Yeah.
focus more on, the spend or the saving, or if you have more needs, that kind of goes like that. When it comes to your personal growth and development, obviously, the listeners might not know this, but I've known you for about 5 years now, right?
Hmm.
And I've seen you grow and develop as I have, as other people have. How have you continued to learn and grow professionally since graduating?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find that I grow the best, or I've continued to grow by being around people that push me to grow. It's this, I know it's an old saying, like, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you who you'll be in the next 5 years or something like that. Like, it's just so true. If you're around like-minded people, or if you're around people that aren't even like-minded, but they're motivating you to learn a subject, you're going to learn the subject. It's almost like you get peer pressured into it. So that's one of
Right.
my favorite strategies is just to be in a community. Maybe I want to grow as a runner, go to a running group. I want to grow as an investor, go to investing groups. You can find them online.
Yeah. Okay. So really just hanging around, I guess if you're continuing to grow and develop, you need to be around people who are also growing and developing.
100%.
I know you talked about how a misconception you had right after college is that you're going to have an intramural basketball game or just go have fun.
Yeah.
And you said the reality was you get home and like you're watching TV. I know that's not currently what you do now. That's not
No.
really your style, right? How do you stay productive at Life Shift? I know you're familiar, but it's all about maintaining systems of discipline, helping men become the best version of themselves through habits that serve you and through routines that propel you towards success. What are some of the routines that you've set up, whether it's a morning routine, whether it's just a daily structure? What are some tips you have and routines you have?
Okay. Professional development side, routines. I want to type better. That's one thing I kind of stink at right now. 15 minutes
Okay.
a day, I type 6 days a week. It's I think it's in James Clear's Atomic Habit book. I'm not sure where the idea comes from, but you need to be doing it daily. It doesn't need to be one day for 8 hours. I need to daily be doing something. So if I want to
Yeah,
get better at coding,
consistently.
yeah, I need to consistently be writing some code 6 days a week, just so that my mind is doing it. I'm actually doing it. I'm not just watching a video on it. Uh, Outside of work, if I'm wanting to have some development, maybe in my community, I need to have something where if I don't show up, someone's going to text me and be like, "Hey, where were you? We missed you."
Yeah,
Like
accountability.
that pushes me to go to it. So for me, I go to like 3 run clubs. I know it's like a little excessive, but it gets me out and it gets me doing something. And it's awkward the first day, the first time you walk up. You don't know anyone. It's awkward the second time. By the third time, you might know someone's name. So what I found that helps me, and this works in anything, let's say you're not going to a run club, you're going to a different type of club. Your goal is to meet one new person every time you go. And by the time you, and to get a phone number of at least two of those people so that you have someone you can text, "Hey, you coming to the club?" Or if they can text you, "Hey, are you coming to the run club?" And this is a scheduled activity in your week and you schedule stuff around it. So like my dinner, my wife doesn't make dinner until like 2 hours after because I go to run club on Wednesday at 6. And she knows that. And like that's part of my schedule. So if you have something that people are going to just be disappointed or people are going to text you like, "Hey, where were you?" That really helps you get out.
I love that, Bryce, because as we're doing this podcast and getting people on who are just a few steps ahead or around the same part in life, I can relate so heavily to you in the sense of that community and that accountability. Of course, here at Life Shift, we have our school community. You'll find the link to that in the bio of the podcast. But we found that so many people our age, men alike, really women too, but mostly men, they need that community. They need that outreach, that companionship. And for you, it's that run clubs right now. And you're working professionally, but outside of that, I know you're big into running, that area of fitness. I know you did CrossFit for a while too. Finding that community, finding those people, and what you were talking about explains it clearly. Like you want to be missed, and getting a number. Those are some really helpful tips if you're listening. Professionally, maybe you're meeting one person a month in your industry, but recreationally and outside of that, just getting a number of someone. And I like how you said that too. It's awkward the first few times. Like even the most
Yeah.
extroverted, I'm a very extroverted person, still going up to
Mm-hmm.
someone and saying, hey, can I get your number? Like it takes effort on your end, but
Yeah.
it's all about that growth mindset. It's all about pushing to be a better person. And I think that's a really helpful tip. And it, like
Yeah.
you said, it doesn't have to be a run club. It could be
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're interested in, but taking that up and finding that
Yeah,
accountability. I like that.
for sure.
We always ask on the podcast, we always ask for a book recommendation. Readers are leaders. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I love to read, and I know you do as well. If you had to recommend just one book to our viewers, our listeners, that's either really changed your life after college, in the middle of college, what's the book and what's the author, Bryce?
It's tough. You know, I'm going to give you one that encompasses like almost how you should attack any problem or anything you're doing in life. There's others that I like for specific areas, but this one I didn't like it at first. It's called Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. He's pretty famous stoic kind of author. And at first I didn't like it
Stoicism.
because I felt as if every chapter contradicted itself. Like the first chapter, he was like, Thomas Edison never slept. He stayed up all night in the lab making light bulbs. And then the next chapter was like, you need 9 hours of sleep every night to be the best performer. I'm like, what the? How does this make any sense? But I come to find that in almost any book I read or any advice anyone gives me, the word is balance. There's always balance. You can't go too far on either extreme, but there's times when you need to go on one extreme. Like you need to save a lot one time because you're low on money, or you need to spend a lot because you got to buy a part for your car. There's just so much balance needed in life, and that book kind of opened my eyes to the fact that like in different stages of my life, I need to have different balances. One stage I may need to be on the grind, studying a ton. Another stage I may need to be resting and catching up, spending more time with my family, something like that. And so it kind of opened my eyes to just the word balance.
Okay. Discipline is Destiny by
Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday. I like that. And I like what you said there too. I preach it pretty heavily on my daily post. Balance is so key, and you nailed it perfectly. I don't even need to add on. Some days you might need that extra sleep. Some days you might need to finish a project for work and you're
Hmm.
not able to get all that.
Yeah.
Balancing everything, that's the key to it. Okay, I like that, Bryce. Thanks so much for joining the podcast. Thanks for coming on, taking time out of your schedule and all your tips and where you're at in life. We're excited to see where you continue to go. And thank you for your experience and your advice.
Yeah, Peter.
Thanks, Bryce.
Appreciate it. Glad what you're doing at Life Ship. Keep it up.